What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. As you can see, we're working on the big MX6 today. The car's been sitting prior to me, so with cars that have been sitting, especially turbo cars, but just in cars in general, because they've been sitting, you don't really know the condition of them. Now it seems to run and start okay, but it's got a slight hesitation when you trump the throttle. It sort of hesitates and then kicks in. So yeah, because it's been sitting, I've just been doing general maintenance. So I replaced the distributor cap. Some of you younger guys won't know what a distributor is, but the older cars had distributors, which was for your ignition. I replaced the distributor cap, I replaced the spark plugs, and then I just went around everywhere with a screwdriver and just checked for boost leaks, so all around the pipe work and everything. And to my surprise, I found the intake pipe a couple of loose, found the air filter loose, the intercooler pipes loose. So I just found just a bunch of just loose stuff. So plugs, distributor cap, I took the distributor button off and just cleaned the ends with some sandpaper because I didn't have another one. If you guys don't know what a distributor button is and or cap, just do a quick Google. But this one's obviously 89 electronic distributor. A lot of the 70s into 80s had points, which were just a pain in the ass. But yeah, I much prefer. But the newer cars these days just have, you know, electronic pickups and whatnot, so no need for a distributor. But yeah, so cap, clean the button up, put plugs in, and just start a button up and just checking a bunch of things. Pulled the timing belt case off because I just wanted to make sure that the timing belt's not shredding apart because I don't want to blow my motor up. But yeah, the main reason what I'm up to now is actually check out my Japanese top. I got this from Japan, so I thought I would chuck it on to work on my Japanese weapon. That is the mighty MX6, which is still waiting to take on some other YouTubers, but I haven't heard back, so whatever. They're all scared of the big turbs. But anyway, I'll quickly show you the main point of where I'm up to now. Now, cars that have been sitting for a while, actually I should start again. When I pulled the old plugs out, they had a little bit of carbon deposits on them and a little bit of a sort of a rich look to them. So again, if you guys don't know, generally when you pull your spark plugs out, you'll be able to tell the condition of your motor by the shade of the plug. So if it's a bit, it's hard to explain without actually looking at it, but if it's a bit grey into a burnty without an oily or a fuely look to it, and it's quite dry, that could mean it's running quite efficient. It could even mean if it's a bit sort of real dry and off to the white a bit, it could mean it's on the leaner side. With mine, I had 2 or 3 plugs that were running that the color looks semi okay, so a little bit on the richer side, and then I had 1 plug that was quite rich. Now, because this car's been sitting for a while, I'd imagine that it's only just been started up every now and then, never driven, idled for 10-15 minutes and then shut off and forgot about for months on end. So when you do that with these type of cars, that's when you get that rich mixture and sometimes that carbon deposit, especially on turbo cars. Standard older turbo cars tend to run richer from the factory. So therefore, if you've had a car that's been sitting for a while, change the plugs, check all your ignition system over, and do what I'm about to do. So this is engine conditioner. A lot of the Subaru guys will know exactly what this is. Subarus are prone to getting gunked up due to their design. I use this on all of my projects as soon as I buy them. If I don't know the condition of it and the plugs look like they're a bit carboned or a bit fuely on the rich side, I give it a engine clean. So this is quite cheap. It it says it's meant to, like if you've got gummed up rings, or you've got carbon deposits on your pistons, or you've just got oil and stuff, this is meant to steam inside the motor and shoot it all out the exhaust. I've used this on everything from Holden 186s to 12A rotaries. Surprisingly, all you rotary guys will know that rotaries tend to carbon up on the little rotor faces, on the compression cutouts, especially if they're ported. If they're ported, they run on the really rich side. Also, with rotaries, you can put oil into the fuel mixture to look after the housings, so that tends to add to them carboning up. So I had a 12A rotary that was 14 years old. I put this through it, and it smoked up my whole estate. I felt really bad. I had neighbours just looking at me. It smoked up my whole estate, because rotaries smoke when they're brand new. So this smoked up my whole estate. It was a brand new estate. So, but it did its job. The rotary started up first click. It just sounded crisp. The plugs were clean after pulling them off again. Now, 14 years, it's going to be lower on compression. The oil control rings are going to be a bit worn out. But I mean, for the sake of doing this, yeah, it just because the motor was never really revved out too. This is another thing why I'm doing it. This MX6 is a turbo model, but it's an auto. Generally speaking, this is not, don't hold me to this, but generally speaking, an auto turbo, they don't get revved out as much as what a manual car would be. So if they're potting around the street just doing 3,000, 3,500 all the time, shifting, and it's turbo and it's running on the rich side, it will eventually sort of gunk up a little bit, carbon up a little bit. Where I got onto this from my days working at Burson Auto Parts, and I've used it ever since. I know a couple of the other YouTube guys tend to use it. Great product. I'm going to show you and talk you through how we do it on my MX6, and we'll see if it makes a difference. Now, generally when you do this, I will do this first. Check your oil, make sure your oil level's fine, but do this first, then do an oil change, do your plugs, etc. I did my plugs before this only for the fact that I pulled a plug out and I checked it, and the thread on the actual plug was damaged, and I didn't want to damage the thread in my head, so I just changed out all the plugs rather than having one separate one. The plugs are cheap enough, and if I need another set of plugs, I will. But yeah, when you do this, just make sure you do this first, then you do your plugs, your oil, etc., and clean your throttle body and stuff like that if you're that keen. But yeah, so I'm gonna whack you on a tripod, and then I'm gonna talk you guys through how to do this. So generally what you're meant to do is you're meant to pull a vacuum line from your intake manifold. Spray this for 15 seconds continuous, like let the motor sit, and then get the motor started. Now it's going to be harder to start with this, so fire the motor up, and then I'm lucky because this is cable. You're only meant to use this cable throttle, so I'll hold the motor at like 3,000 RPM. I'll spray this and control it. It's going to want to stall. I'll keep the revs up, and it'll eventually do what it's meant to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck you guys, check out my t-shirt, I'm going to chuck you guys on a tripod out the front. It's a little bit windy, so I apologize, and I'm going to show you how to do this, so bear with me. Alright guys, I'll quickly just show you the plugs I pulled out that I was talking about earlier. You see they're a little bit oily. A little bit, you can see the carbon deposits. So you can see the carbon deposits on the plugs. And this is the distributor cap I changed. So you can see it's in quite poor condition on the contacts. for the price of it, it's just easier just to change it, to be honest. So that's that. I'll leave that sit over there. Now, I told you you got to spray the stuff into after the throttle body in the intake. So I'm going to use that port there. That's going to run rough with that unplugged, but that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to wake you guys on a tripod because it's a bit hard to film up close. And then if it's successful, you probably should see some smoke pour out of the back of the car. Now this has an exhaust leak, so it might actually pour halfway through the car, but yeah, so this is, I'll just so I can give you guys, so this would be, this is the can, and I'll spray in there, and then it runs through here into the intake, and then hopefully steams the cylinders up and shoots it out of the exhaust. But let me guys whack you on a tripod and we'll go from there. And one side note is, make sure, now I'm stating the obvious, but make sure the motor's warmed up, because you got to hold it 2.5-3 grand for till the can's empty. So just make sure that the motor is warmed up and you are not doing it on a cold motor. Back inside the Beast. Let's see if it's fixed the hesitation. Ooh. Still a slight one. It's 10 times better. It used to stumble and cough. Have a little vac leak, or I know I've got exhaust leak, so I'm thinking that's just now due to the exhaust leak. But I used to stumble from just under 1,000 all the way to sort of 1,500, and now it's nice and crisp. So if you guys get a chance, you guys get a chance, it's something nice and simple. Just make sure you follow instructions, make sure you seek advice before you just go do it by yourself if you haven't done it before. But as you can tell, I'm actually quite happy it's made such a difference on this. And as you would see by the earlier clip, it was smoking out the exhaust, so it's doing what it's meant to be doing. So yeah, I would call this a success. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys are enjoying my array of different content, from Volvos to Mazdas to Falcons. If you guys are new to the channel, please subscribe, please like, share, do whatever you want with my vids, and tune in next time. Peace.